Day everyone, I am Christine Valimarco. I am from English 2 and we are assigned to report the chapter 4 and I choose to report the lesson 2 which consists of Thorndike'S Connectionism. So later on we'll get to know what are these laws that Thorndike's have established. So before that, I want to read the objectives. At the end of the lesson, we'll be able to first identify the primary laws of learning postulated by Edward Thorndike. Second, describe how behaviors are learned according to Thorndike's laws of learning. And lastly, provide teaching applications of Thorndike's laws of learning. Before anything else, let's get to know who is Thorndike. So, Edward Thorndike is prominent due to his primary laws of learning. So, he is mainly concerned between the connection of stimulus and response. However, according to Carter 2012, he is one of the few psychologists who focused on education, and he even uses experimental approach to gauge or to measure the student's academic achievement. Moving on, Thorndike basic ideas in the laws of exercise and effect. So firstly, the law of exercise is divided into two parts. So these are the law of use and the law of disuse. So later on, we'll get to know what laws are these and how these laws works. So the law of use means the frequent recurring. When we say recurring, it is repeated occurrence of the response is not made to a stimulus, then it strengthens the connection. However, the law of disuse means that when a response is not made to a stimulus, then the connection strength is weakened or even forgotten. The law of exercise by Thorndike simply implies to us that the more association or the more approach or strategy is used in a certain situation, to be exact, the band of the stimulus and response becomes stronger. However, the law of disuse simply states that if the lesser approach will be used in a certain situation, the band of the stimulus response will become weaker. So, that is why drills are vital to acquire and sustain learning. In the very words of Thorndike, 1913, bands between stimuli and responses are strengthened through being exercised frequently, recently, and vigorously. So learners usually learn faster when they often apply a certain skill and tend to forget when such a response does not recur over some time. So, for example, pianists repeatedly practice their pieces before their performances. By practicing the law of use, they ensure that they will play correctly. If they do not exercise or they put a stop on practicing piano, they may encounter difficulty in smoothly accomplishing their performances. So that's way too easy to understand how the law of exercise used, and I hope this is making sense to us and we can apply this to our academic life. However, so moving on, the law of effect. The law of effect emphasizes that if a response is followed by satisfying state of affairs, or the SR connection is strengthened. If a response is followed by an annoying state of affairs, the SR connection is weakened. So let's get to know what and how the law of effect works to us, to learners. So from the word effect, or in our local language, we basically term it as epicto. So the fruit or the outcome or the result is the effect, or the bunga or the result is the effect of what behavior we manifest. To further understand the law of effect, so I will give an example. So a student is asked by her teacher to sing for the class. And after the student is when the student is done singing, he received a praise, by her classmate, by her teacher. So this is the time that a student got the response is followed by a satisfying state of affair. So it is stated there that when a person receives a satisfying state of affair, the SR connection is strengthened. Meaning to say, there's a great possibility that that student do it will do her good performance repeatedly. However, when the student, if ever just an if ever, when a student a received bad comments from her classmates or his teacher, this is the time that the SR connection is weakened. Do you get my point? Or this is the time that a student or the response is followed by an annoying state of affair. According to Thorndike, satisfiers and annoyers are both critical in learning. Do you agree with that? Let me know in the comment section. But for me, annoyers and satisfiers are both critical in thinking because these two can be both a motivation or become a motivation of a student to strive harder, to strive for more, to achieve a great achievement or to achieve a great performance. Moving on, Thorndike also observed that the first thing learned has the strongest SR band and is almost inerasable. So he calls it the law of primacy. So here we go about the law of primacy. So this is quite interesting. The law of primacy implies that learning a concept or skill is more difficult than the first time one has earned it. I hope this is making sense. So this explains why teachers correct students who have misconceptions in a new lesson. So to further understand this law of primacy, I will give an example. So a teacher asked her student to spell the word might on the board. So the student stood up and spelled the word might on the board. So unintentionally, the student misspelled the word might. But however, automatically, the teacher will try to correct the misspelled word of her student. Why? Because according to the law of primacy, learning a concept or skill is more difficult than the first time one has earned it. I hope that's making sense. Alright, so according to Demerizin and Topal 2015, the recurring mistake or the repeated mistake among learners are called fossilization. Have you tried fossilization? Have you experienced fossilization in your academic life? Because I myself have tried it many times. So let's move on to the law of intensity. The law of intensity of Thorndike implies that exposing their students in real-world applications of the skills and concepts make them most likely to remember the experience. So this is the time that a student is given a chance to explore on the real world application of their skills. So this is what we call on-the-job training. Have you experienced on-the-job training during your senior high school days? Because we did not. Kanabtan ni COVID. So however, my brother have experienced on-the-job training on the farm because they took the strand agriculture or TVL, and they were assigned on a farm, and they were trained how to they were trained how to plant seeds and how to organize plants. So this is what we call the law of intensity. That the students or learners is is have given the chance to experience the real world application of their skills. So, moving on to the law of recency. It states that things most recently learned are best remembered. Have you tried the law of recency? I hope that's making sense. So, this law is, for example, I um I practiced myself on how to ride a bike. So, the first the recent learnings I have yesterday, it's the learning that is best remembered, and have I have the it's I am having the great possibility to repeat that certain learning I have yesterday. Conversely, the further student is removed time-wise from a new fact or understanding, the more difficult if it is to remember. Letting the students mention or reply the recent learned skill or concept in the new learning experience may refresh their memory. Thus, the higher probability of forgetting. So that is how the law of recency works. Moving on, the principle of associative shifting. Thorndike also mentioned that humans tend to show an almost similar response to an entirely different stimulus if, on recurring instances, the stimulus has slight change compared to the previously known one. So that's way too understandable. Moving on to the generalization, the transfer occurs when the contexts of learning have identical elements and call for similar responses. This implies that not only skills should be taught in one isolated topic, but also the other related subjects or topics should provide opportunities for students to apply them. So I believe that is all about the Thorndike's connectionism